Hi, welcome to today's podcast. I'm Addy, and today I'll be talking about a topic that is very close to my heart, which is racism. Racism has been in the media over the last couple of weeks and has been on everyone's mind, whether it's been now or, a few years ago. An example of this is recently in football, where Luis Suarez, who plays for Liverpool, was accused of racially abusing another player verbally, and he was taken to court, and it was found that these words were said, and that he did have a hatred for black people, and that was evident when it came to those two teams meeting up again, when he didn't shake his hand. And again with the England captain John Terry, a high-profile player, captain for England. It was believed that he shouted racial abuse to Anton Ferdinand in a Premier League game, and stuff like this just highlights the fact that racism isn't dead and gone. Another thing in the media that has been going on for the past 18 years is the Stephen Lawrence trial. He was killed 18 years ago, the year I was born, and has only now been resolved. His killers have been convicted, but it's still a shame, to see this kind of thing happening in such a multicultural country as England is. More recently, another thing that has caught the attention of many people is a clip on YouTube. I don't know whether you've seen it or not, or you've heard about it. It was on the news. There was a woman on a tram in South London with her young son, and there were lots of people on this tram from different backgrounds, black people, Europeans, all sorts of people. And at that moment in time, she decided that she would air her feelings about how immigrants in this country, and just generally what she thought about black people and people of different races. And she in this, she was swearing, and in a very rude manner. You could kind of tell she might have been drunk, or whether she was on drugs or anything. But this again just highlighted the fact that racism is still alive and kicking, and but it's something that really needs to disappear. And in a sense, it makes people a bit more cautious. Even though we live in a multicultural society, and people preach about multiculturalism in this country, racism is still alive, and it's something that people still feel a bit insecure about, and a bit cautious, especially when they're on the street and stuff like that. So I'll just play this clip to you. If you haven't heard it, I must warn you that it is quite distressing. So if you are offended by that kind of thing, you may want to turn the volume down, or even just fast forward to the next part of this podcast.
What's this country come to? A load of black people, a load of Polish, a load of yeah, you're yeah. See what I mean? You ain't English.
No, I'm not, no.
No, you ain't English either. You ain't English. None of you f***ing English. Get back to your own Do you know what? Sort out your own countries. Don't come and do mine. Britain is nothing now. Britain's cool. My Britain is cool now. Britain's cool. My British is cool.
Excuse me, there's little kids on the tram.
Yeah, fine.
Man, we have to take
I've got a little kid here.
Then have respect, yeah?
Have respect, sir.
Little boys here, we don't use those
I've got a
words.
little boy here.
Yes, well, get off the tram then.
You.
And you.
You.
Someone need to throw you up.
Really?
Yes.
I'll dare you. I'll
Just
dare you.
watch your language, man.
Don't watch my language. Go back to where you come from.
Yeah.
Go back to side Gregor, or wherever you come from. Yeah.
I found that quite ridiculous, to be honest. I don't know about you, and it just kind of shows a real ignorance, and she didn't even know what she was talking about. Really, she couldn't really back what she was saying with with anything useful. So, and I think the people on the tram had a right to get upset. And I remember watching that video, whether you've seen it or not. Someone stood up, maybe almost to go and attack her, but he was quickly restrained by someone. But I mean, you know, it just goes to show, you know, the kind of ignorance that people portray nowadays, and you know what people are really thinking. And you know, to be honest, it's a real shame to see this kind of thing still happening in today's society. But anyway, moving on. Earlier on, I interviewed a student at the Brit School in South Croydon, and I also interviewed the manager at a ladies only gym in South Croydon, which is incidentally the same area where this incident took place with the woman on the tram. And I was just looking to get their views and thoughts about racism in general, and also about what happened on that tram. Thanks for joining me, guys.
No problem.
The first question I want to ask there, before I ask some of the other ones, well, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when thinking about racism?
To be honest, for me, I just think of it not as black against white as much as black on black, and that's from personal experience growing up. Fairer skinned black people, dark skinned black people, that's what I think of a lot when I thought of racism growing up in Croydon.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't know about you.
I kind of like that as well, but also just discrimination of people regarding their skin colour, because it doesn't really matter where you're from. I mean, black people can be racist to white people, and vice versa. So that's what.
Is that something you might have had experience in, or you know people that have had experience in that, or?
Definitely. I think growing up in London as a woman of African heritage, I've definitely had experience with that. White people from black people, as I said, lighter skinned people made to feel that maybe because I was darker, I wasn't good enough, I wasn't as westernised as them.
Yeah.
So that's an issue I think definitely a lot of us born in the 80s would have experienced. I'm not too sure about you.
Yeah, because I'm quite dark skinned.
Yeah.
Like you do get the typical jokes, like, you know, like smile in the dark and something like that, like something that's a bit like inappropriate, but you sort of, I don't know, you don't really think about it that much until like afterwards, and you're like, actually that was quite racist, but you don't really think about it at that present moment in time. It's true. A lot of people try to hide racism with like jokes and saying, you know, it's just a joke, it's just racial banter, but then again these things do end up hurting people quite a lot when they're said over and over again.
Yeah, and I think as well as that, I think it's stereotypical things. Like I've always heard, oh, black girls are loud, black girls have attitude. Oh, I wouldn't be with a black woman, I'd rather be with a white woman because I can't handle a black woman's attitude. And that again, I think, is racial and is discrimination and stereotyping as well.
Yeah.
So do things like this, do you think, only affect people in the kind of areas you're in? Because you live in Croydon. Like, do they only affect people in those kind of areas that, you know, that are heavily populated with, you know, lots of different people from different backgrounds?
I mean, maybe because we only live in Croydon, I guess we only get it from that perspective. But I guess it's everywhere when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, it may be around a lot here, but I guess it happens everywhere.
Yeah, I think it happens a lot because of ignorance as well, because maybe in London it is a multiracial place, but there's still, as we said, there's stereotypical views. But then if you went somewhere up north where it was quite a large Caucasian population, it may be because of ignorance that there's racism. So I do think it is everywhere, it's just different levels.
Yeah, that's fair enough. My next question was, what was your earliest memory of racism? if you can remember.
Mine was when I was in primary school. So I must have been probably 7 or 8. Yeah. And my mum had done my hair in China bumps. Which don't know, little twists, but they look like little circles all over your head with thread. Some of you may know about these. And very tight, but maybe for convenience, and so my hair grew. And a light-skinned girl, mixed race, said to me that, oh, look, you look like Sonic the Hedgehog. And now, as an adult, I can laugh about it. But I cried in the toilet, and I was hurt, and I wanted to be lighter, and I wanted to have Barbie doll hair. And so, fun enough, my first racist experience wasn't white to black or Asian to black. It was another black person, but just a lighter shade.
Yeah.
But I laugh about it now.
Actually, mine was the same, but it was just because I went to school in primary school where there was quite a lot more white people than black, and obviously it wasn't the norm for that hairstyle. And so
was that the weave? Was that the weave?
And like people would be like, what's that? But obviously they didn't know. Again, that was like out of ignorance. I didn't know what it was. So they just made like the comment, but not realising that actually it kind of hurt.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. Well, moving away from that side of things, the more comical side of racism, even though it isn't comical at all. In terms of jobs and aspirations and like people going to university and trying to, you know, make something of themselves, how can racism in your mind affect things like that and your growth in terms of, you know, the career you want to go into?
For myself, I studied human resource management at uni, and I think as a black person and a black woman, there are a lot of barriers, to be honest, because at the top of these jobs you may see more women, but they're usually white women. As I said, people have stereotypes associated with black women, and I've just personally found it harder to rise up through the ranks. I actually went for a telephone interview for one job, and when I got there face to face, the person said after the interview, they said, if you don't mind me saying, I actually thought you were a white woman on the phone.
Oh wow. And
so I don't know if that affected my chances. I got it in the end, but I do think we have to behave a certain way and work extra harder, unfortunately, as black women trying to get higher in our industry.
That's true.
So why do you think that is?
I think even though people won't admit it, there are still these thoughts and mindsets that people have, and it's taken a few years to change, but I think it's not happening as quickly as it should be, and it's just from previous generations, I think, as well. Yeah. To be honest, that's been passed down.
Yeah. So what were you going to say about that as well, Gabby?
Oh, no, I was going to say from like a student perspective, not just from being a black girl, but just being black in general. I mean, at school, black students seem to be the ones who are loudest and who won't focus and who won't concentrate and that. And therefore sometimes may not be given the most attention, or in some cases, you know, some teachers don't take them seriously, if that makes sense, and therefore, you know, it's quite hard in order for some students to get that grade that they want to get. And again, breaking out into certain colleges and certain courses that they want to take, it can be quite hard because again that whole stereotype as well, and then with like names, like African names and traditional names, and as soon as that comes into the picture, again that stereotype comes up when actually it should be, is this person educated, and how do they speak, and are they well qualified for the course or job, whatever.
So okay, well, back at you, Gabby. Another question I have is, you know, with all of that, you know, in consideration, what is the best reaction to racism when receiving racism?
I think not to get angry at it, because obviously if you look at history, it will kind of always be around whether we like it or not. It's not something that's going to go away quickly, but for those who may receive it, they have to react in the best way in order to prove the stereotypes wrong. And so that people have an understanding of how it affects people and to stop it as well. So I think.
Okay, that same question is aimed to you, Cheryl. What in your mind is the best reaction, you know, to receiving racism?
I think for me, growing up at first, it always did get my back up, and it made me more argumentative and things like that. But as an adult now, I just want to educate people more. You know, when people ask questions about my culture, my Ghanaian culture, or my background, or this or that, or how it was growing up, I welcome the questions. I don't take offence anymore when they ask about certain names or different foods or different hairstyles and things. I welcome the chance to educate people, because I think that's the only way to go forward, is to educate them. Because if you get angry, it's pointless, because you're getting angry at ignorance. And for someone to be that, you know, racial, or have that racial hatred, they're ignorant, they don't understand, and they do need to be educated of these things, I think. So that's the best reaction I think you can give.
Okay. In a country that, you know, talks about, you know, being very multicultural and, you know, all that kind of stuff, and is very multicultural, is it okay then to view one race as being, you know, better than the other, and why isn't it?
I mean, I don't think it's acceptable to view that. I think because depending on where you're from, obviously the population for white people is bigger in Great Britain. But then if you went somewhere like Ghana, for example, the population of black people is bigger. I don't think it's acceptable to view one as better than the other. I think we all have things to offer. We can all learn from each other, different skills, different trades, different history, things like that. And I think, as I said earlier, the best way is to educate each other in our schools, in our workplaces, so we can all become a more diverse nation, really.
I'd agree with that.
I'm sure you heard about the incident on the tram with the woman who decided to let everyone know on the tram about her feelings concerning people that have come into the country and stuff like that. And I just wanted to know really what you thought about it.
Okay. I wasn't happy about it at all. I was quite shocked. The lady had a child on her lap, and I just thought, I was quite shocked that this sort of racism, ignorance and hatred is still going on, especially in Croydon, which is quite a multicultural area. You agree? And I was quite surprised that for so long the reaction of the people around her wasn't that. No one really had a reaction. Everyone was too scared to stand up, when obviously they were all clearly affected by it, until eventually a lady stood up to her and the guy behind her actually went to attack her, didn't he?
Oh yeah. No wait.
He threw his bag off.
There was some people. There was one woman who told her. There was one woman who said, "Can you not use that language?"
Yeah, and
but she didn't actually question what she was saying. Which was quite weird. And then eventually that guy decided to, and then one of the ladies.
I think what we're just saying is that no one actually questioned what she was saying actually, or challenged her to say actually, immigrants coming in are helping the economy to an extent, are doing this. Everyone just said your language is inappropriate, but no, everyone was too scared to stand up to her, and that I was quite surprised at.
I think in my opinion it's hardly an invasion, as some would say, because as that was going on, there were a lot of black people and people from other backgrounds on that tram, but they didn't seem to impose their will as some people make out that people coming into this country do. So I don't really see how much I don't really see how people coming into this country are having such a negative effect on everything in the country.
I think the reason why people took so long to respond, I think, was a general shock, like as she said, because they've lived in Croydon, and again that's quite a multicultural area, and to just have something random like that on the bus, on the tram, would be actually surprising, especially when you're not even focusing on what she's actually saying, and then to actually digest that and to think, one, she's got a baby on her lap, talking about this. You don't really know what to say in the moment of it, if that makes sense.
I think what was quite interesting was after that on YouTube there were several responses, and there were some quite racial responses from other white people or people hatred against immigrants, and I think for me it was just a lot of disappointment that this is still the mindset of so many people in our local area after all these years, and it was a lot of young people, which was surprising as well, that were posting other hatred videos on YouTube as well. And so I do think, the punishment the lady got, did she do something?
Oh, her children got taken away from her.
And I think she was arrested and things like that. I think it was just to show that actually when it comes to racial hatred, you'll be made an example of.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's all fair enough, but why in your mind did it have to take something like that, something, on such a grand scale, for people to then start coming out and saying what they really felt?
Because as a society we're really reserved. Everyone sticks to their own business, especially if you think now that the internet is really what controls our lives. You don't have to say what you feel to someone face to face, and you just don't feel the need to. You get reserved, and you don't feel like you should cause a fuss. Like, again, if someone black had said something, that would have probably angered the woman, and she would have gone even further with it. So sometimes, I think it's just a lack of communication, and again, of understanding of each other in the community.
But do you know what? I know this might be a bit controversial, but I think deep down we all have a little bit of racism, whether it's through ignorance. I think we all do have a little bit of racism towards other cultures and nationalities and things like that. Because at the end of the day, it took that woman to have so many different people coming up on Facebook said, I agree with her, she was right. And obviously this is maybe something that's bubbling under the surface, as Gabby said, of a quite reserved nation that everyone keeps to themselves. But then when it's in your face, then, you know.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Maybe it'll come out.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming here and letting me interview you on racism. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that's what Cheryl and Gabby had to say about racism, and hopefully within the next few years we won't have to talk about it as much so often. But until then, the debate will continue. Thank you for tuning in to today's show.